You won't believe how close Rick was to saving tens of thousands of dollars. Experts usually help Rick's side and either make sure that the item is original or help with evaluating the item. But these were the times when Rick absolutely regretted calling an expert after they gave him the highest appraisals you could think of.
Damn, that much?
A guy walked into the shop with what looked like another old coin, and he wanted $20,000 for it, which could sound like a lot, but what if I told you that it was one of the rarest coins in US history? At first, what seemed to be just a basic coin turned out to be real gold. He explained how he wanted to pawn it, believing that the coin has some cool worth after he got it in the most random way possible. Rick knew exactly that the coin this guy brought had incredible value.
This is worth a lot more than 20 grand. That's pretty awesome.
But that's not even the craziest part, because the seller still had no clue that this coin was worth 2 to 5 times more than he requested. Rick was still shocked and jokingly said that he'll pay the $20,000 right away.
20,000? Do you think it's worth that?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Let's go.
It turns out that the coin is actually a 1992 high-relief proof coin, which was made as a special edition that was never meant to be used in general, with only a few of them existing in the world. Rick couldn't believe the luck this guy has by having something that most collectors dream of. Most of these were just melted, and for 15 years, no one even knew they existed. Of course, Rick was interested in having it, but the problem was that he never saw one before. At this point, Rick had 2 options: take the risk and pay the $20,000, or call an expert and risk getting it evaluated at much more. And Rick does what he does best. He calls a guy. Dave came to inspect the rare coin, and he instantly knew what he was dealing with. He was as surprised as Rick, and as he gave a brief story of the coin again, tension was rising after he started actually looking for signs of authenticity. And in the end, it turns out that the coin is 100% legitimate, saying that one of these was recently sold for over $100,000, and as this one is a bit lower grade, it's still worth between $50,000 and $100,000, closer to the $100K range.
This coin is worth something north of 50, but less than 100.
Rick was happy and sad at the same time because he could have flipped the deal and get double or triple of what he invested, though would that be fair to the seller? Rick wanted to play it cool by offering $65K and a firm handshake, but the seller asked for $90K, saying that it should be a fair price. Rick's lowball try wasn't really working, so he tried again for $75K now, saying that the guy wanted $20K either way.
We were willing to take 20 grand for it.
And in the end, they met in the middle, 4 times more than the original asking price, 80,000 American dollars. Pretty crazy, right? But it just keeps getting crazier with the crazy valuable stuff these other guys have brought. Like the second guy that has a priceless amount of famous people's autographs, or the third guy that has one of the coolest and rarest shotguns ever made for France's royalty. Imagine randomly finding a whole stack of vintage postcards somewhere in your attic, thinking they have absolutely no value, only to find out that they go up to $10,000 or even more. Because that's exactly what happened when this man walked into the famous pawn shop, showing everyone a massive collection of celebrity autographs from the 1940s and 50s. But it gets even crazier because Rick casually tried lowballing the deal without knowing the real worth of these postcards. The seller actually possessed autographs of some of the biggest names in Hollywood history, like John Wayne, Marilyn Monroe, and even guys like Babe Ruth and Frank Sinatra. But do you think such a collection justifies the big price tag? His great uncle was actually collecting all these signatures and was sending them to his mother. So it turns out surprising his mother wasn't the only good cause these signatures did for someone, because this guy requested $2,500 for all of them, over 250 autographs in near mint condition.
How much do you want for them?
I was thinking 2,500 for all of them.
Of course, the problem with such items is that they're usually just forgeries, so Corey had to call an expert. That's when Steve, one of the best authentication experts, arrived. He went through all the cards in the collection and stopped for a second because he realized that there's a Babe Ruth signature dated just a few months before he passed away, which is an incredibly rare piece.
It's dated May 3rd, 1948. 3 months later, Babe Ruth was dead.
And the signatures aren't just real. He found out that many of them are in great condition, signed by ballpoint pen, which just adds more value. And his final words were that the collection can be sold for up to 5 times more than what the seller asked for, up to $12,000.
$8,000 to $12,000.
Still on 2,500?
With that said, the seller finally understood the real value of the collection his great uncle had, and he requested more than triple the original amount, $8,000, knowing there's a lot of room for Corey to profit on either way.
What do you want for him now?
Start at 8,000 then?
By the way, keep in mind that just Marilyn Monroe autographs alone were sold for thousands of dollars before. However, there's a big catch here because all of these items would probably need to be sold separately, which takes a lot of time and even risk, so they had to agree on $6,000 so it benefits both sides. Though, do you think any of them left money on the table? And the third time Rick regretted calling an expert was when this old man came to the pawn shop and tried selling an old shotgun. Though it's far from just a normal shotgun, and it's not only another antique that's beautifully crafted. This shotgun was a masterpiece created by Napoleon's gunsmith and is worth more than 2,000 years old. And Rick was definitely not ready for the number his expert was about to drop. So the old man brought a Boutte shotgun, and that name wouldn't mean much to an average person, but for a firearms collector, that's equivalent to owning a Picasso art. It was handcrafted in the early 1800s, and the old guy who inherited the shotgun from his father didn't know much about it, and it was just hanging around the wall for years, waiting to get into Rick's hand. And when Rick saw it, he instantly knew this wasn't made for a regular soldier because of all the details, gold inlays, as well as the high quality steel and wood that's been used. This was built for royalty, and that's when the clueless seller offered $10,000, still not knowing almost anything about his antique.
I'm looking at 10 grand.
Okay.
So Rick knew this could either be worth a fortune or be another one of the overrated family possessions. So he had to call his firearm friend, Alex. And who do you think Alex helped? Thankfully, like in the rest of the cases today, the seller. He confirmed that this wasn't just a normal shotgun, but something made by Nicolas Noel Boutte, a guy who was amongst the best gunsmiths in France and considerably in the world, being a royal gunsmith to even Louis XVI and Napoleon.
The finest gunsmith, certainly in France, but many people would argue in the world.
That's when both of the parties knew this was worth much more because of Boutte's shotguns being historically priceless, basically. But they had to check one last thing. Does it fire? So after getting to the shooting range, they prepared the gun a bit and saw it firing perfectly, even after more than 200 years, mind you. Boutte definitely did a good job. Alex estimated the value for 3 times more than what the seller asked for, 30,000 American dollars.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it sell up for 30,000.
But Rick couldn't give anything near that amount, reminding the old guy that he wanted $10,000, and assuming he wanted a bit more now, the old guy answered that he doesn't want a bit more, he wants a lot more.
So you were asking 10, I'm assuming you want a little bit more now?
No, I want a lot more.
So he started at 20 grand, though Rick wasn't ready for this to happen and offered back $15,000, saying that he won't probably see any money back for a year or two. It was tough, but they settled at $16,000, with the old guy saying it's still much more than what he asked for. So, was this a fair deal? And my question is, if you found such a valuable item, would you bring it to a pawn shop, or would you get it professionally appraised yourself? And after all these hard deals for Rick, when he regretted calling his guys, which one do you think he should have taken right away, or maybe even walked away from?